Hey everybody, this video is part of our full-length The Onside Kick podcast. You can find that on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes. You can pretty much find it anywhere, so we don't care where you listen. Just stick around and check it out.
This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub themmies.
And we are back for another edition of The Onside Kick here on Most Valuable Podcasts. If you are on YouTube, hello. It is wonderful to see your faces yet again. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or Stitcher, thank you guys for giving us either the download or the listen today. And Mark, we got a jam-packed show. A jam-packed show here on The Onside Kick. We're going to be talking about Drew Brees, a little bit of the conversation's more about the owners changing the overtime rules. But on the Dan Patrick Show, Drew Brees chimed in, gave his 2 cents.
He likes to do that.
About the overtime rules. We're going to talk about that, how they will affect the NFL. We're going to look at Kirk Cousins, one of our favorite quarterbacks to talk about in the NFL, and whether he'll get a long-term deal done this offseason. And then we're going to look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Is this finally time to believe in the hype that always surrounds the Jacksonville Jaguars? But let's start with non-football anything. It's just rules changes and owners meeting to change things that might affect the football game, but it doesn't exactly involve pads and players. And that is the overtime rule change. Owners going to meet to vote to change from 15 minutes to 10 minutes. And although they're going to meet, it's pretty fairly predicted that they are going to make this change. And like I said, Drew Brees on the Dan Patrick Show said this: I'm not sure what the thought process was going into it, but just from what I see, I would disagree with it because most games are going to end up in ties now. End quote. What do you think? How does this changing it from 15 to 10 minutes of overtime period affect NFL games?
Well, I think my first thought is to ask Drew Brees. You say, from what I'm looking at, well, what are you looking at? What is it that's telling you that? Is it something where you're saying, well, pretty much all these games get decided at minute 12 and minute 13? You know, is that what it is to where you're saying that? Most people's casual complaint is the fact that these games will end on the first drive, is that someone will throw a touchdown and game over. And I feel like that's more of something that needs to potentially be addressed in one way or the other than it being 15 minutes long. I mean, I'm confused are the owners thinking that these overtime, quarters are just too long and people are bored and they're tuning out? Is it more of a, 60 Minutes really hates when we cut off part of their show and make them start late, And I say that because my parents would watch 60 Minutes all the time, and my mom really disliked when a football game went over, which was like every single week. So I don't know. I don't know why this is the thing that's being addressed with it. Maybe they think that people will take more shots or something, and they're just going to try and end fast because there's less time. I don't really know what this is. To answer Drew Brees' question, does it make for more ties? Yeah, I mean, it makes ties more likely to happen because there's less time. I don't necessarily know that I think this is the worst thing in the world, though.
Well,
I mean,
and the thing originally, and when I was watching one of the videos that they had on the article for CBS Sports, they had their 2 guys talking, and I guess one of the reasons why the owners want to do this is because of the it's usually the pen and paper answer. It's the answer that the political answer you'll put out there. Oh, it's to reduce injuries. Less time on the field for you to maybe get injured. But really they looked into it, and with this time going from 15 to 10, it's only going to decrease injuries by 0.06%.
Yeah.
So basically nothing.
It's not like we're changing every quarter to 10 minutes.
It's going to change basically nothing on that front. The thing I actually like this, and I am not opposed to having a shorter overtime period, and this is why. Because of 2 things. The first thing I look at is it's a passing league. if you have now less time in an overtime period, you're not going to want to run the ball. So you are playing into exactly what the league is right now.
And what people like to
league.
see. They like to see touchdown throws.
And people love to see offenses going down the field, especially like look at the Super Bowl. Who are we talking about? Are we talking about the running backs? Are we talking about Tom Brady? We're talking about Tom Brady. We're talking about those wide receivers and the plays that they made to carry the team down the field. That's point number one. Point number two, I think this will add a little bit of urgency, not only to overtime, but to the fourth quarter. Because if you don't want to play overtime, don't punt the ball. Don't punt the ball late. And it's going to change, to me, in either late game situations or even in that overtime period, it's going to change the special teams. Because there's a lot of times in football where it's like, oh, we only got this far. Let's just punt it. Let's flip the field on them. Change the field position. Let the defense do that. And you'll see that in overtime. Well, now if you have less time to do it, you might not see that as much.
Well, I don't think it changes anything with the fourth quarter because the fourth quarter doesn't matter in overtime.
Well, I'm saying like if teams, hey, you know what, we don't even want to get to overtime now, then win it in the fourth.
I don't think they want to get to overtime anyways. I don't think it changes anything for that. For the overtime period, sure, I can see where it's going to make teams more likely to take a shot. Because let's say you're the team that gets the ball first. Let's say you take 3 minutes. You have a decent drive. You take up time. You're going to now punt the football. Okay, so there's only 7-some minutes, probably closer to 6 minutes left. If they take another 3 or 4 minutes, you're at a 2-minute drill. You have to do something. So, yeah, I can agree that teams are going to be... They're going to want kickers that can kick long field goals,
like a
things like that. Yeah, they want somebody that can win them this game. So I can see that for sure. To me, I just don't honestly see what this changes. Like, sure, there are now 5 less minutes in this overtime period.
Well, you're taking away possessions.
You're basically what this seems like they're trying to almost do is artificially create a shootout of like this team will have their chance, this team theoretically will probably have their chance. Maybe one more team will get a chance, but probably not both teams getting 2 chances.
Unless that first team just the
3 and
defense
out
for the other one. Or I'm saying that we get the ball first and our offense just drives straight down the field and we score a touchdown. Like, if that's the case, obviously the other team's not going to get the ball.
But that doesn't change anything. Like, if it's just one possession, nothing has changed. If it flips over and that other team wins, nothing has changed.
Well,
what comes down to is the fact of like when it starts getting to that third and fourth possession. But still, I don't see that much has really changed except for sure you might speed up the urgency a little bit. I don't think this makes the game more interesting. I don't think that this
I honestly think that
fixes overtime.
It puts the team that's on defense first at now more of a disadvantage. More of a disadvantage because let's say you're a defense and you don't get that 3 and out. You don't get the 3 and out, but you keep them off the board. Let's say it's even a drive longer than you said. What if it's a 5-minute drive? And you're sitting there and you kind of stall them a little bit and you get the ball back to your offense. Now your offense has 5 minutes to do the same. I can see where Drew Brees is thinking of like, oh, it's going to end in ties. Because like we're saying, well, with the average amount of possession to time, is there going to be anything? But like you said, just get a kicker that can kick longer, especially that second team. I just think, I don't know why the NFL just doesn't take it. If they're trying to do this to create more urgency and create those big plays in the passing game, why not just go to the college rule and force it? Just say, you know what, screw it, we're just having an end zone game.
Here's a few things. One,
or a red zone game is what I should say.
One,
the red zone game on red zone.
Yeah, right. I don't think that. I'll say it this way. I think that with this new 10-minute thing, if I'm a coach, I would like to waste time now. You know, I would
Especially
like
if
to
I
run
have
the
a
ball.
phenomenal kicker.
Yeah, I would like to run the ball more often. You know, let me use 6-7 minutes somehow, some way. I know that's hard to do in football. But let me use as much time as possible because I want to give you no time to do what you want to do. Especially if you're the team that plays defense first, you somehow get the ball back. If they used up some time, maybe there's 6 minutes left. I can use 4 of those minutes. I can use 4.5 of those minutes. Let me use up as much time as possible to not give that team another opportunity. And that's, of course, coming down to what Drew Brees' complaint is. The problem I have with using the college football is fun to watch. And overtime is really fun. It unfortunately artificially inflates stats. It makes it really kind of muddy in that sense. I think that there's also, when you're talking about these injury concerns, you're compacting a lot of players into one spot. I think that would defeat the whole we're doing this to solve injuries. You do get a lot of probably fun plays to look at, but I also think this is interesting. This is the fact or stat that's going around so much now is that it's actually the way the NFL does it compared to the way college does it is actually more fair because it is closer.
You're saying the NFL is more fair than college.
It is closer to a 50-50 shot for either team to win, where for college football, the team that's on defense first has about 64% higher chance of winning.
And you want to know why it's a 50-50 shot in the NFL? Because a coin toss decides it. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I don't like about the overtime
that's not
rule.
what it's saying at all. That's not what it's saying at all.
I feel where it's the coin flip is why it's 50-50.
Hold on. Let's address this. This is wrong.
Okay.
Just statistically, it's wrong. What it's saying is that getting the ball first does not give you much of an advantage. So the coin flip is not, you can boil it down to that a little bit, but the coin flip is not what's making it 50-50. It's saying that just because you get the ball first does not mean you're going to score a touchdown. You have a 54% chance of winning a game.
Well, and I think of it, look at the Super Bowl, and this comes down to that coin flip. If the Falcons were able to get the ball first, they probably would have won that game just like the Patriots did.
But what you're missing in the statistic is that it's saying that's not true. It's saying it is 54% to go your way. It's only giving you a 4% tilt. When you look at that, if you have 100 games that go in overtime, 53 or 54 of them, the team that gets the ball first wins. 46, 47%, the team that gets the ball second wins. That's pretty insignificant. That's saying that that's pretty close to fair because the 50-50 split doesn't exist in the real world. Statistically, that doesn't exist. If you flip a coin 100 times, press pause and do it right now, you're probably going to get a 54, 55 heads to, whatever tails. That's probably what's going to happen. So this is actually pretty close to being real odds. I bet if you took a look at, and I might be wrong in this comment section, so feel free to let me know. If you took a look at, just the overall statistics of home versus away, when you're more likely to win, that's probably less fair than the overtime rules are.
Now, and the thing I'm thinking of right now is it the misconception, I'll say, that we look at college and say, well, both teams get the ball, so it's fair?
I think so.
Where in the NFL, team A got it, but team B didn't, so it's not fair.
And I'd be interested to see in the comment section here, this was another chance where you guys can come in and save the day. I'd be interested to see how many times, a raw number, does a team who gets the ball first score a touchdown and nobody gets a chance. Since they changed the rules. No looking at before.
Like how it used to be is, just getting field goal range and we win.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see that because there are plenty of times where the ball exchanges hands quite a few times and then somebody wins. We don't talk about that. There's plenty of time, well, not plenty, but there's times enough where there's a tie, and we don't talk about the ties. We don't like ties. We only like to make fun of them for kissing their sisters. What is highly publicized, even though it doesn't happen as often, is that the team pulls a Tim Tebow, here's a play, there's a touchdown, game over. That really doesn't happen all that often. It's just that it's highly publicized. The fact that we know teams are going to get a chance on offense and a chance on defense in college football makes it seem more fair, even though statistically it's less fair.
And the thing that I do like about college is it's exciting for the fan because basically what you're doing is, and another reason why this might feed into that statistic of why the team that's on defense first wins most of the time. What are you doing to the field? You're making it smaller. You're making it harder for the offense to work.
Yeah.
In the NFL, would that be too much of a slide over to the defense, or are our offenses so good in the NFL, it doesn't matter if we give the defense a little bit of an edge in situations because we're making that field and we're making it shorter, being
and
a
it
red
depends
zone
on the
situation.
teams, obviously, too. I mean, teams of a good defense are going to have a lot better chance than Drew Brees' Saints.
Yeah.
Where they need
Which I
him
could
to be the
see-
guy to go for it.
I could see him liking how it is right now, just basically because of how his team is.
So to me, when we really look at the overtime thing, and I want to say something else in a second, but when we look at the overtime thing, statistically, it's actually pretty fair. So I look at it and say, maybe it doesn't need to be changed. Maybe it's actually okay. Or there are other things they can do to fix it. And I want to take a look into some of the other sports and what they do for this. You know, we used to have the classic shootout, which everybody hated in the NHL. And now they just get the overtime period unless it's unless it's the playoffs, and then it just never ends. So there's no ties in the playoffs.
Well, now in the
obviously.
regular season, they get that 3-on-3, which is awesome.
Which is a lot of fun to watch. There's not really a good way to mimic that in the NFL. The NBA has their short little periods, quarters, whatever you want to call them, for overtime. That's kind of fun because maybe that's what the NFL is trying to mimic, is this short little thing, but it doesn't really translate as well to the NFL.
Yeah.
Baseball, just keep playing. Just keep playing until somebody wins.
Yeah, but that's the one thing with baseball is the thing that we criticize it for most is that they don't want to change.
Yeah.
And how we complain that baseball games are too low. Look at that Cub-Yankee game. 18 innings.
Yeah.
I didn't even watch the first part. I only tuned in because I'm like, they're in the 17th.
Well,
I might as well watch.
And I'm a White Sox fan, but Ricky, what did I say watching the final game of the World Series? Somebody just win this damn game. I want to go to sleep. I'm not a Cubs fan.
Because you weren't going to turn it
care.
off. It was Game 7.
It's Game 7. I'm not a Cubs fan, but I have to watch it. I needed to see who won. But anyways, baseball's its own thing. So
everyone's going to talk about it at work tomorrow.
Right? I got it. Well, I'm like, so many of my family and my friends are Cubs fans. I have to watch because I want them to be happy. I don't necessarily want the Cubs to win because I'm a White Sox fan, but I want my friends to be happy. So I look at these type of things, and honestly, I can't really say I know what soccer does in overtime. I'm sorry.
So what
friends.
soccer does, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe what they do is, and I love it because the only soccer games I've watched, I will say this, although I don't watch a ton of soccer, I love with soccer that I can go, hey, so-and-so, let's do this then. I'm going to go watch the soccer game. Oh, how do you know it's going to be over? It'll be done in an hour and a half. And you can time it like that. I'll be done in an hour and a half because they have someone who clocks how much stoppage time. So like when the ball goes out and they're not actually playing, and then at the end of the hour, at the end of the 90,
keep going.
It's like, okay, 2 minutes of stoppage time, and you get 2 extra minutes.
Yeah, but that's not overtime necessarily.
It's kind of overtime, but it's not like a traditional overtime.
Yeah, but they do have overtime in soccer.
Yes.
Yeah, I just don't know how they do it. Didn't they used to do shootouts as well? Because isn't that the thing about
They still do in some cases.
Mia Hamm? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was old.
Yeah, Mia Hamm, the chick who ripped her shirt off.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big deal. Like, what was that, the 90s?
I know
it's
about,
a big deal.
Yeah, I know about the stoppage time. I don't know about anything after that. Not going to pretend to be a soccer fan either.
Yeah. I don't know. I look at this and it's like there is merit to saying that maybe the NFL should require both teams to touch the ball at some way, shape, or form. It's like when you played basketball in high school gym class and they said everybody's got to touch the ball before you shoot.
That's how they taught you.
To make it fair, everybody's got to touch it because there's that one person that doesn't really want to play and it's really screwing your team over. Maybe there's merit to that, to saying that both teams need to touch the ball. I can understand that. What I think of, though, when I see a stat like, it's only a 53% advantage or something, it's like, statistically, that's about as fair as you can really get. It's almost a 50-50 split to where, hell, maybe you could just flip a coin and say, oh, Packers won because they called heads. Don't even need to play. All right, congrats, Aaron.
Well, and I think the really the big thing that comes down to it is out of the overtime periods, and you could even, I'm going to say don't go back to before they changed the rule. The thing that would be more interesting is not who wins, but how many of those overtime games get to
the second
that
possession.
11 through 6, that 11 through
okay.
15. Because if not a lot of overtime games are getting there, why are we like...
This doesn't change anything.
Why are we having this conversation? We're just
You're
basically saying
solving a
we don't need
problem that doesn't
time.
exist.
Now, I know literally the Cardinal-Seahawk game got there because it ended in a tie, but how many of those... It depends. If how many of those are going into it, if it's not a lot, then this doesn't really change anything.
But then the thing, too, is Drew Brees is complaining about a tie. What's wrong with a tie? I mean, we like to make fun of it.
Nobody likes
We like
ties.
to make fun of it, but...
There's got to be a winner and a loser. Come on.
Hockey's got ties?
No.
What's wrong with that?
Hockey doesn't have ties. They've got pity points.
They get ties.
No.
Those are ties.
It's not a tie. It's not a tie.
Game ends in a tie. Nobody won.
Nobody ends it. It doesn't end.
Nobody won.
You get a pity point.
You get your damn point, but nobody has won.
You get a pity point. You get 1 point instead of 2.
Nobody's basically won.
1 point instead
So
of 2.
it's maybe the NFL needs to adopt a pity point system for a game for a league that doesn't have points.
Don't take away my pity point.
But my thought is, what is wrong with the tie, Drew? Like I'm sure you want to win because you don't want to be 7-8-1.
Nobody wants to be 7-8-1.
But the thing is, like, if it's part of the game, and if you got a problem with tying, don't go to overtime.
But Mark,
win your damn game.
You play to win the game.
That's what I'm saying.
You play to win.
You got
the game.
4 quarters. You couldn't get it done in 4, and then you couldn't get it done in 10 extra minutes. You deserve your damn tie.
And what I'm doing right now is I'm on week 13. I'm going through each week and just taking last season as an example because I want to see out of the overtime periods. Surprisingly, we had a lot of overtime games through the 14 weeks of last season. I'm honestly intrigued to see how many of those overtime, not who won, not the possession thing, but how many of those overtime games
the time
actually got to the 10-minute mark in overtime. Because if it's one of those things where, like I said, if it doesn't get there, what's the point of this happening? Like, what's the point, not of happening, but of us having this conversation?
You're solving something that's not a problem.
You're basically saying there's nothing to complain about here because we don't really need to. And I have all the overtime games now figured out. The first one were the Chargers and the Chiefs. Let's see what they did in overtime. If I go to the play-by-play, the scoring play happened at about 9:53. So just to that time.
So it might have an impact in that one because you would have been running out of time.
Whereas
But in that case, you probably would have kicked a field goal and you would have won.
Next game was the Browns and the Dolphins. That one, 8:26 was the timestamp when the Dolphins won that game. Again, doesn't go past that 10. Then we had Colts-Texans. Texans won it on a field goal with 8:10 to go in the at the 8:10 mark. So yet again, 2 minutes into the overtime, boom, we're done. 9:01 for the Chargers and the Falcons. We've got the tie with the Seahawks and the Cardinals.
Go tie.
We've got the tie with the Redskins and the Bengals. That went all the way through. Then at about this one would have gone into that time at a minute 45 left in the game. So that's within the 10 to 15 minute mark. We
officially have one that has gone on.
Then we have 7:58 or 7:48 between the Eagles and the Cowboys. Wouldn't have been in that 5-minute span. We've got Lions and Vikings, 8:21. We've got the Chiefs and the Broncos. This is the second one that has gone into that time. But the Broncos scored with 8:51, but it was a field goal. Chiefs then scored within that 5-minute mark. So if this would have been a 10-minute...
game would have probably been over.
It would have been a Bronco win if we had the 10 minutes. So we have 2 games that would have been affected by it. The 49ers and the Jets, 8:35 wouldn't have had affected them. The Dolphins and the Bills, we had the first score happen at 47 seconds. So that's 3 that would have been affected. And then the last one, The Browns score at 7:17, but then the Steelers get their touchdown at 2:57. So we would have had 4 overtimes out of the ones I listed that would have been affected by this rule last year in some way, either win or loss or a tie.
Yeah. And it seemed like only 2 of those games were ties.
2 of them were ties. 2 of them changed the outcome of the game.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's just one of those things where I just don't feel like it's necessary. I mean, sure, you change 2 outcomes, 4 outcomes, and then 2 of them would have ended in tie.
Browns would have won a game.
Hey, they won a game.
Well, they would have won another game.
There you go.
They would have beat the Steelers, the team that they always seem to find a way to beat once.
And then
it seems like
the 49ers would have ended up with Myles Garrett.
Yeah, they would have. And then the Mitch Trubisky would have probably been a Brown.
Probably.
The Bears probably wouldn't have traded. Wow, the rabbit hole continues.
What a thing that happens.
When it comes to these overtimes. But any last thoughts before we officially kick it to the listeners to see what they think?
I'm interested to see what happens with it this coming season and the following season, because it takes a little bit to really fully evaluate it. I don't necessarily think we needed to really change much, and I don't think this really accomplishes very much. So whatever is my thought.
I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, like I usually am 100% of the time.
Usually 100%.
I could care less if they change it to 10. It does not affect my life whatsoever. I am still going to watch the games.
Should just
I'm
be a
still going
shootout.
to watch overtime.
Kicker shootout.
And number 2, although the statistics that Mark threw out might say I'm wrong, I think the college system is more fun to watch, and that's what I would prefer.
Well, it's not that it's not fun to watch. It's just that it's less fair.
It's less fair, but it's more fun to watch, and that's all I care about. What's more fun to watch? And that's what I'm saying.
You'll care about it when your Vikings lose in overtime.
My Vikings. How many overtime games did we have? We had 1 last year. 1, and that was the Lions. So that's me. I just don't think it matters a huge lot. It's just something that players and everyone just like to complain about. But this is where we will turn it on to you guys. If you have not already, let us know down below. What do you guys think of the overtime rules being changed? Does it need to change? Should it change? Should we keep it still? What do you think we should do? Down below in the comment section.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And don't worry, there is plenty more where that came from. You guys can check it out right over here. Click that video, start watching it, and just stick around on Most Valuable Podcasts.